So you know what? I figured it would be a good day or a good time to bring back an old series. Now, we haven't really continued this series since I want to say the beginning of June, potentially, was the last time that we made, or no. The last time we consistently did it was June. We made a video on the Nashville Predators' favorite players in December, and then I just never continued it. So, we now move on to the Montreal Canadiens. Who are my favorite Montreal Canadiens? Who do I have as honorable mentions? And who are players that I do not have on my list? Of course, that happens. But first off, if you're new to the channel and you haven't already subscribed, please make sure to do so, as we are on the road to 900 subscribers. The run's been great. I've had a lot of fun doing these videos for you guys, and I cannot wait to keep on doing them. We changed the setup a little bit. It's looking pretty good, and yeah, anyways, I'm not going to waste any of your more time, and let's get into the video. So before we get into the basic top 10 favorite players, there are two columns that we got to go through first. The not on the list and the honorable mentions. The not on the list are players who are just not there. I have not seen them. It's either I've not seen them play enough, or I generally just don't see a really big fandom for them. So, you know, that'll be... Some people have dissed me for that, but personally, there's just some players that I just don't, I'm just not a fan of them. So, not on the list is Cole Caufield and Ben Chiarot. There really isn't that many players on the not on the list, and there's really not that many players generally through the entire series that are on the list. So, first off, not on the list is Cole Caufield and Ben Chiarot. Caufield, because I haven't seen him play enough to really like him, although the playoffs with the Montreal Canadiens playing the games they have and playing them really well, and Caufield playing well, I have really grown on Caufield, and I think that, maybe in a couple of years when I do this again, he could be in the top 10. Next up is Ben Chiarot. Ben Chiarot I never really was a fan of. I like his defensive style of play, but generally, I just don't see it, to be honest with you. I honestly don't. So, now on to the honorable mentions. First off, Jake Evans. So, Jake Evans, I am a big fan of because he has my last name as his name, and I think he's a very entertaining, underrated bottom six forward. Then you have Alexander Romanov. Alexander Romanov, a very physical, very good physical presence defenseman. It may take him a little bit to start scoring the goals, but let me tell you, when he starts scoring the goals, it's going to get pretty nice. So, next up is Jake Allen of the Montreal Canadiens. He's potentially gone to the expansion draft, so he probably never makes the list. But I was always entertained by Allen. I like the idea of trading him over to Montreal. I don't know if I covered that. I might have. I don't remember covering it if I did. But, yeah, I think that was a good move. Philip Danault, a very solid center. He just didn't crack the top 10. Max Pacioretty, I only saw him for a year in Montreal before he got dealt away to Vegas. Nate Thompson, I'm a big fan of Nate Thompson. I like his center style. He's a good physicality, a good person off the ice as well. And finally, Carey Price. So yeah, there's no goaltenders on this list whatsoever, to my knowledge. But yeah, the top two tenders for this season are not on the list. And you can notice in the top 10 and in the honorable mentions and the not on the list, a lot of these players are actually on the team. So it took me a little bit before I became, a liable fan of these players. So now we move on to the top 10. And at number 10, he's only played a season for the Montreal Canadiens, but personally, with the way that Corey Perry generally played in not only Montreal, but also in Dallas. Not really as much in Anaheim, but I liked him in Dallas, and I liked him even more when he went to Montreal. He's going to have another chance if Montreal wins Game 6, mind you, to go for another Stanley Cup. He hasn't won since 2007. But personally, I just really thought that, Perry, a good physical player, and he got waived. He wasn't really he was really just the guy to be on the depth chart. If a guy got injured, he would come up and play for him in their spot. But he really worked his way into the lineup and played that good physical role. And he's done pretty well, and he is a pretty key player in these playoffs. Number 9 is Shea Weber, captain, defenseman of the Montreal Canadiens. One of the first players that I got to know when it came to start learning about the Canadiens when I was, my 11, 10-year-old self. I can't remember how old I was. I generally like the way Weber plays. Weber plays when he's unhealthy. I don't think I've ever seen him healthy, to be generally honest with you. But I'm just really impressed with how he plays the blue line, and he's that backbone. If there's any player out of the Final Four that I want to see win a Stanley Cup, that's the captain. I mean, sure, we saw Stamkos win it last year, although it would be more surreal to see him actually, play in the playoffs to win it. Anders Lee's injured, although he could technically win it for the Islanders. Mark Stone, I don't really know about Mark Stone, but I would love to see Shea Weber win the Stanley Cup, and that's why I'm on the Habs bandwagon. Excuse me. Number 8 is actually a goaltender, so I lied. I did not see his name on the list. It's Keith Kinkaid. So Keith Kinkaid's at number 8. Was really a good third-string goalie for the Montreal Canadiens for a little bit. I thought he was pretty impressive. I had a good time watching him. And, I mean, my fandom goes towards him more on the Rangers. But I feel like the fact that, I started becoming a fan of him when he started playing for the Montreal Canadiens, I have to include him on the list. That's somewhere. That's just how it works. At number 7, I have Tyler Toffoli. So when Toffoli signed that, I think it was like a 4-year contract at the beginning of the offseason, I initially thought, because the Habs, they lost out on Taylor Hall, they lost out on who else was there? Mike Hoffman. They lost out on a couple of guys. Well, they may not have lost on Mike Hoffman, but you know what I mean. And they traded away Max Domi, a key center, for Josh Anderson, which I want to review that trade at some point. That trade entertains me. And they brought in Toffoli on that 4-year contract. I really thought he was going to benefit that offense, because Montreal, they're great on the blue line. Their blue line is stacked. And, you got Petry, Weber, you got Romanov, you got that Caden Goulet guy coming up, and, you have so much depth on the defense, but you didn't really have as much on offense. There was Gallagher, Suzuki, Kotkaniemi, but Kotkaniemi hadn't taken that step up yet. There's Byron, Tatar, there's some guys on that offense, but you really needed a goal scorer, and Toffoli, he was that goal scorer. And when he came to Montreal, and even before, when he was in Vancouver, for that little span of time, I liked him there. When he was in LA, I liked him the whole time he was in Los Angeles. And he's really amped up his value in these seasons. And he's really played well in the playoffs. And that's why Montreal is 1 win away from the finals in Game 6. Speaking of 6, number 6 is Brendan Gallagher. Now, Brendan Gallagher, if before the playoff series between Philadelphia and Montreal in 2020 last season, if that didn't happen, Gallagher would probably be top 3. But I'll be honest, I lost a lot of my respect for Brendan Gallagher when it came to that playoff series. I thought he played pretty dirty against the Habs, and when he got sticked by Niskanen, I didn't say he deserved it necessarily, but I said it was kind of karma because he was going at the Flyers players. I mean, he was talking trash. He was making dirty hits on the Flyers, and Niskanen just did what he had to do, and he got Gallagher out, and you could argue that's why the Habs lost. So, and then I gained a lot of respect for him back, especially in this Montreal Canadiens playoff run. I gained a lot of respect for him in that, and, I just can't, I don't know if he'll be in the top 5 ever again, but I'd say 6 is pretty good. Number 5 is actually Paul Byron. So Paul Byron has played a very key role in these playoffs, and I liked Paul Byron before these playoffs. I was a fan of him. I thought he was a solid offensive player. But then he really took that step up. He scored that one great goal against the Leafs. He was making great passes, and he set up the Kotkaniemi goal in Game 5, And he was also making opportunities in, I think it was game 2 for Montreal, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, really, he's been very valuable. And he really just stepped up his game for the Habs in these playoffs. And that's why he's number 5. At number 4, the rest of the guys are currently on the team. I have Dale Weise. So Dale Weise, I saw him play for the Habs for a year. I thought he was entertaining. He's a nice guy. He's not the best player in the NHL, of course, but he is a nice guy. He's a pretty nice person to be around. And I mean, he's in real estate now. I can confirm that. But I just think that, he's pretty entertaining to watch when he was playing. And I mean, his Habs tonight is pretty entertaining as well. I do watch some of that on occasion. At number 3 now, we have Joel Edmundson. So the top 3 are kind of based off these playoffs. Joel Edmundson has been playing stellar in these playoffs. Stellar. I feel like, and I personally believe, that he has played very well. And he was, like I said, he's a top 4 defenseman in Montreal. He's great. And he gets the opportunities. He makes the right defensive plays. He doesn't get on the score sheet, notably not too often, but he still is very valuable to that Montreal Canadiens roster, and that's why I have him at number 3, because he's just generally entertaining. At number 2, I have Jeff Petry. So Jeff Petry, pretty iconic defenseman for the Habs, and he's super valuable. I think Edmundson's pretty valuable, but I think Petry's a level above Edmundson. Petry is so valuable to that blue line. Petry comes in game, 2? He missed game 1 because of his arm injury. And the Habs win game 2. He made chances and got a couple assists in that game. And he was doing it from the very moment the puck dropped to the very moment the horn blared in Vegas in game 2. He played stellar so far in these playoffs. And he's been very valuable. And it just shows that Montreal plays very different without Petry in the lineup. And at number 1, it doesn't come as a surprise to some people, or at least it shouldn't. I have Jesperi Kotkaniemi at number 1. And the reason behind that is because I just am so entertained with the way he plays. He can play a lot of aspects. He can play physical, he can score, he can make the right passes. He is great on every aspect. Every single aspect. And I just love him. Like, he's so much fun to watch for that Montreal Canadiens team. If there's any Habs jersey that I'm going to get, which, by the way, I don't have one, it's Kotkaniemi. Absolutely. He is just one of the most underrated and one of the most youngest players for the Habs. And he is an RFA, so we're going to see what that contract has to hold. But anyways, that is my top 10 favorite Montreal Canadiens. Let me know down below who you guys think your top 10 is, or who your top 10 is, who you think. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I got a game to watch between the Lightning and the Islanders. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one.